Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Timmy Kemza James. So a client sent me this picture of this off-shoulder bell sleeve, but she's a plus size person and she wanted something really affordable. So I got her this lace from my store, which it's really affordable and is lovely. You can see it has this nice flowery patterns on it, and she is a plus size person and she's busty, so she's scared of how the off shoulder would look. So I suggested a high off shoulder dress for her. So we're going to be using this lace and this really beautiful sky blue silk sort of satin material as the interfacing for the lace. So I'm just going to be showing you how to be able to cut by freehand for a full chest woman or a plus size woman, and she has a little bit of a belly, so we are going to be working with her measurement. So if you're worried about sewing for plus size, that's totally fine. If you follow the same procedure as I did on this fabric, you'll be fine. So let's get into it, guys. So before we start, all our new subscribers are all welcome to the family. So do ensure to comment below where you're watching me from. It will help me to bring videos that are most helpful to you. And do ensure to give me a thumbs up if you find this video quite helpful at the end of the day. So let's just get right into it. So first off, I'm starting with the skirt and I'm going to mark the length. The total length of the dress is 62, guys. So I'm going to take out her half measurement, which is that's the upper side of the bodice. I'm subtracting that by 62. So I'll put 62 on the fabric. Then I'll come here and take, so I have 62 here. Your entire tape is actually 62, if because but it stops, the writing stops at 60, but when you use the entire tape is 62. So I'll come over here and go ahead and mark 20 here, which I'll be using for the length of her affluence. So I'll just, even though her affluence I'm going to be working with 21, I'll just mark 20 here. So I'll just go ahead and draw that line first, which will eventually be her waistline. Then I'm going to be marking the waist to the hip, which is 9 inches. So I'll just go ahead and mark 9 inches. Then I'll mark the waist to the knee, 21 inches. So I'll go ahead and mark those. Then I would connect those in a straight line, like so. So I folded the fabric in half before doing this. So how I measured this is a quarter of her hip measurement. So from here to here is a quarter of her hip measurement plus around 2 or 2.5 inches, which I'm going to be using for sewing allowance. That's how I knew what I needed. So now her waist is 43 inches. So I'm going to be calculating 43 divided by 4. Whatever I'm going to be marking here, I'm going to be dividing that measurement by 4. So I'll just do that and place that here, like so. Then I'm going to add 1 inch for that, then 2 inches sewing allowance. Then on the hip as well, I'll be dividing her hip by, I'm going to be dividing the hip by 4 as well. Then my dart is not going to be extended up to the hip, so I'm just marking 2 inches sewing allowance. Then what I have on the hip initially plus the dart allowance, I'll bring it down to the knee because the client is really, she's shapy, she has a nice physique. So I'm just going to be connecting those points. Sorry. So I'll go ahead and connect my points. So I'll use my pattern master to connect. You can go ahead and use your hip curve, but I sort of use my pattern master for almost everything. So on the length, I'll just take this straight down since it's a straight dress. Whatever I have on the knee is what I'll put here. If you want it penciled out, you can go ahead and make the length, the hem measurement smaller than the hip so that it pencils out nicely. So I'm going to be cutting this out. So for the back side, I just went ahead and folded the fabric again in half, but I made it wider than I did on the front, and I left this space here which I'm going to be using for the zipper allowance. So your center front is going to be the one sitting on this side. Then you leave around an inch or 2 inches, whatever you want your zipper allowance to be. If you want half of an inch, that's fine. So aside from that, I'm just going to go ahead and cut out the same thing as well. Then I'll cut here open. So this will be it about the skirt side. You can see we have this front part with the center line is unfold. This will be the center front. Then we have the back side which is open, is cut open. So I'll just go ahead and cut. I'll lay this on my lace with these shiny sides, the right side being facing the wrong side of the lace. Then I'll go ahead and cut the exact same thing. Then I'll come back to show you how to cut the upper side. So I told you guys that we're going to be working with 21 inches as her affluence length. So I'm going to be using 22 because I'll need 1 inch to join the upper side and the lower side. You can work with ½ inch, that's fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark. Now you remember it's an off-shoulder blouse, so I'm marking 5 inches out of the measurement. So I'll just place that 22, then I mark 5 inches out, so that would be the cut out for the off shoulder. So what that simply means is that we are not going to be sewing we're not going to be having the upper side of the dress. So by the time we have this line, this side is going to be our chest line, which will eventually be the neckline of the off-shoulder blouse. Then I'm going to be inserting my bust pan measurement, which is 5 inches. Now that is half of my bust pan, of the client's bust pan, sorry, is not my dress. So I'm just going to mark the half of the bust pan. The bust pan is 10 inches, so half of it is 5. So I'm marking it on the neckline and on the hem as well. Then I'm going to square the line out like so. When I do that, now I'm going to insert, I'll place my tape on the 5-inch mark and continue marking her vertical measurements. So from her chest, from her shoulder to her bust point, that's the nipple point, is 12.5 inches. So I'll be marking 12.5. Then from her shoulder to, mind you, my tape, the 5 inches is still on the chest line as I'm doing this. To her under bust is 18 inches. So I'm just going ahead to mark 18 inches. So I'll come further and do the same thing. I'll mark 12.5 and 18 like so. Then I go ahead and square the line out. Now when you're doing this, make sure your line is as straight as possible. You do not want errors because it can just ruin your outfit and you won't know where the problem is coming from. So ensure that your lines are properly drawn. So on this side, now I'm going to insert my darts. So my dart is I'm going to mark 1 inch on both sides for start. Now I'm going to take more than that because I'll be tightening the underbust, so don't worry about that. So I'll mark 1 inch on both sides. Then on the affluence point as well, I'll mark 1 inch on both sides. That's a total of 2 inches. Now you remember I told you this person is a plus size person, so bear in mind that we're going to be needing more darts than this, but I'm using this 1 inch for the sake of the affluence. By the time I do the underbust tightening, I'll have a wider dart than this, so don't worry about that. Now I'm going to be connecting this point to the nipple point, which is here, which is also the bust pan measurement on the bust line. If not because we're using chalk to mark, if it were a pen, I would have labeled my parts, but just if you go over this video severally, you would understand what I'm doing totally. So on the chest line now, I want to take 2 inches of that as well, but I want the dart to sort of be on the side. I don't want it coming from the center line, that's the midpoint, like so. So I'm going to take the 2 inches on this side. I don't want it coming in towards this side so that it balances well on her body. So I'm going to mark 2 inches on this side. Then I connect to the bust pan like so. Now our dress is taking shape, so I'm going to now place the 5-inch back on this line here. Then I mark her her armhole line, which I'm working with 8.5, so I'll mark 8.5 here like so. Then I'll draw that line. So this is going to be her armhole line. I'll just go ahead and mark these points like so. So I enjoy drafting by freehand rather than pattern paper lately. So on this line, I'm going to be marking her bust measurement. So the client's bust measurement is actually 48. So I'm dividing 48 by 4. I'll be marking that here. Now don't forget our dart is here. It extended to the bust point. So I'll measure what I have on the dart on this bust side. I have 1.1. So I'll bring back 1.1 here like this. Then I'm going to be marking 1 inch to join the two panels together, because the side, we are going to have the side panels and the center front. So I'll mark 1 inch for joining those panels. Then I'll mark 2 inches sewing allowance. You can work with as much or as less sewing allowance as you wish. So now back to this side of that's back to the neckline of the dress. So you remember we took 2 inches here, so I'm going to pay back that 2 inches on this side like so. Then I'll go ahead and connect here to this point here. So I can use my French curve, or I can totally do that by hand, by freehand. It will still be all right. So I'll just go ahead and mark like this, right? So the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to mark her affluence measurement. So the affluence is also the waist measurement for the skirt, which is 43. That's what we're working with. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark 43 divided by 4 here on this line, right? So I'm going to connect this point using slashes to this point here. Sorry, this point, which is her main bust measurement. I'm not talking of the 1 inch for sewing and the 2 inches sewing allowance. So I'll just connect here to the main bust here with slashes. Reasons being that I just want to use that point to measure what the allowance to take for my under bust tightening. So by the time I do this, I'm going to, what's her under bust measurement now? The under bust measurement is 39 inches. When you divide 39 by 4, this is what you have. You have somewhere around 9.75. So I'll mark that 9.75 on the under bust measurement, right? So I'll just go ahead and mark 9.75 here. Now this is not so significant, but it's really important because I need this gap here. So this line that I have here, see it, that's the line that connects the affluence measurement to this main bust measurement that I have on the armhole line. The difference from here, this line, from this point, that's the under bust, the regular under bust measurement, to this point here is the important part that I need here. So I'll measure what I have there. I have 1.6. So I'm going to divide that 1.6 on this side so that I take my, so that it helps me create a fuller side for the bust and also sit nicely and eliminate folds on the under bust. So I'm going to take on the side panel, I'll take 1 inch sewing, I'll take 1 inch out of this 1.6. I'm tightening by 1 inch on this side, then 0.6 on this other side. Now you can take the entire thing on one side, but it sort of gets too much. That's why I do share mine like this. So I'm taking 0.6 on this side, then 1 inch here. Now I'll connect this point back to this our dart leg on the affluence point. So I'll connect it like so. Then I'll connect this side as well. So you can see now our dart is wider on this side. Now I'm going to be connecting here to the bust point, but I won't bring it exactly on the bust point because I want it looking nice and smooth on this side. I don't want any pointed edge there. So from the bust point, because she is a plus size person, I'm going down by 1.5 inches and coming up 1.5 inches here. You will see the reason why I need to do that. Now connect this point to this 1.5. So I'll just use freehand. You can use your curve. You can just also place your curve like this. It's still all right, still the same. So you connect here, then you do the same thing for this side. So I'm just going to, you make sure that it's touching that 1.5 inch line to the 1.5 inch line. So you can see there's a curve that outlines where the bust is supposed to sit on the garment, right? So now just to tighten the topmost side a little bit, just like we have here, you can go ahead and measure the upper chest of the person. But if you did not measure that person, that's totally fine. So for this client, 16 inches is okay. So 16 divided by 2 is 8 inches. So I'm going to measure 8 inches, but I'll start from this point to the beginning of this side here. I have 5.2 inches. Then I'll continue with the 5.2 from here. So what I have here is totally fine. It's not even up to the 8 inches, so it means I don't even need to tighten. So I'm good on the upper side of the body. Now the chest line, if you look at the style properly, on the line on the chest here, there's no sweetheart neck or anything. It's just straight across. So I'm going to leave this side straight. Now one thing I'm going to be doing here is, darts are depth. So these darts that I took here, 2 inches, I'll come back from here, which is the affluence divided by 4, and pay back 2 inches like so. Then 1 inch, which I'll need for joining both panels, like so. Then 2 inches sewing allowance, like so. Then I'll just go ahead and connect my points like this. Now I'm going to measure what I have on this panel with what I have on this panel to be sure that by the time I join it, it's going to be even. So I'll just go ahead and measure what I have here. So I have 17.5 on the center front panel. Let me measure this one. So I have 18 inches on this side, which means on the center panel, I need to raise it up by half of an inch. So I'll just mark half of an inch here. Then I'll go ahead and connect to this point here. So I'll connect it like this, and this will be it for the front. I'll go ahead and cut. Now pay attention to the lines that I'm cutting. I'm cutting to the under bust tightening. Then I'm going out like so. So this side, if you see the one that comes out very well, you know that the client has a gut or is fuller on the belly side. So that's why you have this pointing out like this. That's why you really need your under bust tightening, because it just sort of brings out the shape that the person has, and it's flattering on the person's body. The person is able to wear the dress and be comfortable in the dress. So I'll take out these 2 inches darts here. So here we go. This is our center. I'm going to keep this aside, then I do the back side. So for the back side of the dress, what I did to the front is pretty much most of it is what I'm going to be doing on the back. Or the back is easier, a lot easier than the front. So for the back, I'm just marking that 22 inches, then I'm minusing 5 on this side. Now I made this line, which is going to be my zip allowance, so you can use the quantity you want. I just used around 1.25 inches sewing allowance for my zip, so you can just go ahead and do whatever works for you. If you want 2 inches, if you want 1 inch, that's totally fine. So I'll mark that 22 again, minus 5 here, and I'll do the same. Then I'll connect it like so. Now that, then on this side, on the chest, by the time I'm done, I'm going to still place that 5 inches here. Then I'll mark that 8.5, which is for the armhole, like so. Then I'll just go ahead and do the same thing all through. Then I square out the line like so. Then on the affluent side, I'll mark the bust span, which is 10 inches divided by 2. I have 5 inches. I'll mark it here. Then I'll mark the same thing on this point here. Now mind you, on the back, I'm not marking it up here, I'm marking it here. So I'll just go ahead and connect like so. Then I'm taking ½ inch of that on both sides, ½ inch here on both sides of this line. Then I'll go ahead and connect that point up to this point here as well. and that will be pretty much it for the back dart, like so. Now you remember that 7 inches we measured on the chest line, so that it was initially 8 inches, but we said we had 7.5, so I'll mark that 7.5 here, like so. Then on this armhole line, I'll mark her bust measurements, divide by 4. Now I'm starting my markings from this line here, not from the beginning. I'm starting it from this line, so I'll mark that. Then I mark 2 inches sewing allowance. Then on the affluence, I'll go ahead and mark her affluence measurements, divide by 4, like so. Now we are taking that on this side, so I'm marking that 1 inch for that. I'm just going to put a standard dart. I'm not going to cut out the dart, so there's no need to add sewing allowance to join any panel. So I'll just go ahead and add my regular sewing allowance to join the front panel and the back panel without this other joining here. Then I'll connect the line like this. Then I'll go ahead and make my armhole curve from here to here. Then I decide how the neck on the back, how I want it to be. So I'm just going to come down from the line by 1 inch. I don't want it too big. You remember I said she's a plus size person, so you have to be careful dropping her neckline and any other thing. So I'll go ahead and cut then I'll cut open the zip side. And this will be it for the back side. So by the time I open it, this is what it's going to look like this. So I'll keep this aside, then we cut the sleeve. So for the sleeve, I might not be able to mark chalk on the lace because I'm going to be using the lace and it doesn't have any lining or interfacing. So the sleeve length is actually 19 inches. It's actually 22 inches, but you know it's a bell sleeve, so we are not going to be cutting that the bottom side. So for the it's 22 inches, so I'm going to take out 6 inches for the bottom side. So I'll take out 6 inches from 22 inches, so I'll be left with 16 inches. So I'll just mark 16 inches from here for the length of the sleeve. So what I'm just going to do is to just go ahead and be cutting, so you see. So from the 16-inch point, I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out straight. Now I'll measure to see if I folded it in half. What I have is enough. So her biceps measurement is 17 inches, so I will check 17 divided by 2 plus sewing allowance to see if I have enough. So I have enough here to work with. So now on this side that I cut out 16 inches, you remember that 5 inches we came down on our blouse. Now I'm going to take out 1 inch away from the 5 inches, then I make it 4 inches. Or I'll just take out 4.5, half of an inch to make it 4.5, like so. So I'll just try to place a chalk there first. So I have 4.5 here. Now I'll place my tape on 5 inches from there. Then I mark 8.5. You remember that armhole line which we had 8.5. So that's what I'm going to mark here as well, 8.5 for the armhole. Then I'll mark her biceps on the armhole side. I'll mark her biceps like so. Then I add my sewing allowance. You can work with whatever sewing allowance that works for you. Then I'll make a curve to meet the biceps line. You might not see that clearly because it's a lace, but don't worry, just follow what I'm saying. And I'll advise you do this on paper first before you cut the fabric if you're a beginner. So this is what I have. Now on this side is going to be somewhere around her elbow, so I'm going to mark her elbow measurement, half of it, plus sewing allowance. So that's what I'll mark here. Then I'll go ahead and cut it to meet this side. And this is it about her sleeve. So this is the sleeve of the dress. So I'll just go ahead and cut the second sleeve. And the bell side is actually simple. It's just a flay sleeve, which I have a video of a flay sleeve on my channel. I'll be linking it up if you don't know how to make that flay side. It's just a flay that you attach to this side, right? So this is it. I'll just go ahead and cut out my lace on all my pieces, then I'll show you. So guys, here is the finish cut out. I cut out my lace. Here is my center front, my side piece. I have two of them here. This one matches like this, and this on the other side like so. Then here is my back piece and my sleeve. Here's the flay side of the sleeve. So I just cut out the radius of the sleeve like this, and then I cut out 6 inches, but I made it 6.5 for sewing allowance, so you can see. So by the time you pick this up like so, you're going to be sewing it on this like this, and you can see it's already creating the bell sleeve effect. Then I have my skirt panel as well. So here are all my pieces. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to tell me where you're watching me from, and see you in my next tutorial, which will be a sewing vlog of these outfits, guys. So see you then. Bye.